Dr. Liara was a presence on the Meridian station. You couldn't miss her, not just because she was alien, but because of the way she carried herself. A quiet confidence, a sharp mind, and eyes that seemed to pierce straight through you, as if she could see not just who you were, but who you could become. She was a part of the research team, of course, working on the same groundbreaking genetics project, but there was always this unspoken distance between us. I couldn't help but notice the little things about her. The elegant way her markings shifted when she was deep in thought. The way her violet eyes seemed to catch light in a way no humans could. The patterns on her skin weren't just for show. They were tied to her emotions, her state of mind, a visual representation of her thoughts. A living tapestry of her intellect. And even though I worked alongside her every day, it was hard to ignore that she was from an entirely different world, both literally and figuratively. On this isolated station, where humans and aliens worked side by side, I learned more than just genetics. I learned about the differences that made us all unique. Liara, with her alien culture, was fascinating to me, but also a bit intimidating. I'd never crossed the line beyond professional conversation. But my loneliness, the isolation, it had a way of gnawing at me, turning the smallest thing into something more significant. I'd started looking forward to our interactions. They were brief moments where I could forget the weight of the work and feel a little less alone in the vastness of space. She was one of the few who truly understood the research we were doing, and for the first time in months, I found myself wanting to connect with someone beyond the surface level. But I kept it to myself. Liara was a colleague, nothing more. I was here to work, to push the boundaries of science, not to get caught up in the messiness of emotions. At least, that's what I told myself. It was a Friday evening, the kind of night where everyone on the station lets their hair down a little. The research was endless, the isolation brutal, but tonight we were all human again. The common area was filled with the faint hum of the station's artificial gravity and the muted clink of glasses. Sarah, Marcus, and I were gathered around the small bar Marcus had set up, sipping on what passed for space alcohol. I'd had a long day at the lab, but I was trying to relax, to let the tension slip away, if only for a few hours. The conversation flowed easily at first, talk of the latest data, a few offhand comments about how long it had been since any of us had seen daylight. But then, as always, the conversation shifted, and Marcus, ever the instigator, tossed out a question. "So, Ethan," Marcus said, leaning back with a grin, "if Dr. Liara ever, I don't know, proposed to you, would you say yes?" It was a harmless question. I didn't think twice before responding with a joke, a way to keep the mood light. "I mean, I'd say yes if she proposed," I said, laughing a little. "But that's just hypothetical, right? An alien woman proposing to a human scientist? That's some next-level stuff." The words left my mouth without much thought. It was a casual remark, something to deflect from the pressure of work, a way to lighten the mood. I didn't think for a second that it might actually mean something. It was just a laugh. Just a joke. Sarah chuckled, shaking her head. "Sure, Ethan. You'd say yes to anything with that look in your eyes whenever she walks by." "Oh, please, it's not like that," I said, trying to brush it off. But the words felt heavier than I expected. There was a truth to it, though, wasn't there? A small part of me had always admired Dr. Liara, more than I cared to admit. But it was nothing real. Just admiration. And then the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't immediate, but it was palpable. There was a pause, just a beat, before the door to the common area creaked open. I didn't see her at first, but then, there she was. Dr. Liara. She was standing in the doorway, her violet eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made the air seem suddenly thicker. I froze, half expecting her to laugh it off. But she didn't. "Then say yes," she whispered softly, her voice a calm contrast to the sudden rush of adrenaline I felt. My heart stopped for a moment. Did I hear that right? The room went silent, and for a moment, it felt like time itself had stalled. I wasn't sure if I had heard her correctly. Was she joking? No, the look in her eyes, the seriousness of her voice, it wasn't a joke. It was something else entirely. "Liara," Wait, I stammered, my words fumbling over each other, trying to process what had just happened. But she didn't let me off the hook. She simply stepped further into the room, her movements graceful, as if she were used to commanding attention without even trying. Her presence, the very air around her, felt charged now, different. She was always poised, always composed, but now? She seemed like something else entirely, like a storm on the horizon that I couldn't escape from. Ethan, she said again, her voice smooth, unwavering. You made a declaration, and I'm simply responding to it. In my culture, words like those, especially in the presence of others, aren't taken lightly. Her words felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. I wasn't sure what to say or how to handle this. The last thing I expected was for her to take my half-serious, half-joking remarks so seriously. But there she was, standing in front of me, watching me with those violet eyes. The gold flecks within them seemed to sparkle under the dim lights of the common room. Her markings, the intricate patterns on her skin, were shifting subtly as if they were reacting to the emotions in the air. Was she nervous? Or was she testing me? I could feel Sarah and Marcus watching us, but the world felt distant. All I could focus on was Liara. My heart was racing. I opened my mouth to say something, but no words came. What could I say? How could I explain that I didn't mean for my words to be taken seriously? How could I tell her I wasn't ready for whatever this was? Liara, I began again, my voice shaking a little. That was just a joke. I didn't mean. But she cut me off, her expression softening, almost as if she could sense my uncertainty. I understand, Ethan. But you must also understand that such a declaration, in my culture, holds weight. When you said it, you didn't just make a joke. You made an invitation. She paused, looking at me intently. And I'm here to respond to it. I swallowed hard. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of everything. A joke. An invitation. Was this how she saw it? But I didn't mean it like that. I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. I was trying to find the right words, but nothing felt right. The way she was standing there, so composed, yet so open, was making me question everything I thought I knew about my own feelings. Liara looked at me for a long moment, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind. I could feel her carefully choosing her next words. Finally, she spoke again, her voice calm, but there was an undeniable intensity beneath it. I know, she said, but in this moment, what matters is not what you meant, it's what your words offered. And that is what I am here to explore with you. I was silent for a long time, unable to find any more words. My mind was a storm of confusion, my thoughts clashing with each other, and my heart was suddenly aware of something deeper, something I hadn't wanted to confront. Was I ready for this? Was I ready to accept a proposal from someone so different from me? An alien? A woman from a culture so vastly different from my own? I had no answers. But as I stood there, staring at Liara, I knew something had shifted. My words, which I had thought were nothing but a fleeting joke, had somehow opened a door. And now, I had to decide if I was brave enough to walk through it. The next day, the station seemed quieter. Or maybe it was just me. I couldn't shake the heaviness that lingered in the air after Liara's words. Every time I tried to focus on the research, I found my mind drifting back to her, to that moment in the common area when she'd responded so seriously. My stomach was in knots, and I couldn't figure out if I was more embarrassed or intrigued by what had just happened. I tried to get back into the routine, diving into genetic markers and the latest data, but it felt like my brain was running on a loop. Every time I glanced over at the lab door, every time I heard her voice in the hallway, it pulled me out of my focus. The lab had always been my sanctuary, my space to escape from the isolation and chaos of the station. But now, with Liara's proposal hanging in the air, the lab felt suffocating. During lunch, Sarah and Marcus seemed to notice my distraction. They were both quiet for a while as we sat down, poking at the meal in front of us. Finally, Sarah broke the silence. "Ethan, you okay?" she asked, her voice full of concern. You've barely touched your food. I tried to force a smile. Yeah, just a long night. Lots on my mind. Marcus raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying it. You're still thinking about what happened last night, aren't you? I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. Of course they'd noticed. They were always watching, always reading between the lines. I could feel Sarah's gaze on me, probing, as if she was waiting for me to spill. I don't know what happened, I confessed, lowering my fork back onto the tray. I made a joke, and then, she said, I cut myself off, not wanting to say it out loud again. She said, then say yes. Sarah finished for me, her voice soft. Yeah, we heard. Pretty sure the whole station heard. I sighed, rubbing my temples. I didn't mean it like that. It was just a joke. Marcus shook his head, clearly not convinced. Ethan, you've been looking at her differently for a while now. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't blame you. She's smart, gorgeous, and, well, she's alien. But that joke, man, come on. You weren't exactly playing it off as harmless. I opened my mouth to protest, but the truth was right there, staring me in the face. I had been looking at her differently. It wasn't just admiration. It was something more, something I hadn't been willing to acknowledge. I didn't think she'd take it seriously, I muttered. I thought it was just harmless banter. Harmless to you, Sarah pointed out. But maybe not to her. Liara doesn't joke like you do. You're human, you understand humor. But her culture? They don't mess around with words like that. And now she's waiting for your answer, whether you meant it or not. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Was she really waiting for my answer? Was I the one who had made this complicated? Had I opened a door I wasn't ready to walk through? I glanced down at my tray, the food no longer appealing. My appetite had evaporated the moment Liara's voice echoed in my mind again. I just don't know what to do. Sarah and Marcus exchanged a look, and for a moment, I felt like a child being scolded. You've got to decide, Ethan, Marcus said, his voice quiet but firm. Do you want to move past this? Or do you want to explore what she's offering? Because right now, you're stuck in the middle, and it's only going to get harder the longer you drag it out. I didn't know how to respond. What could I say? How could I explain the confusion swirling in my head? There was a part of me that was scared to say yes, terrified of the unknown, of what it meant to bond with an alien woman. But then there was another part of me, the part one had been ignoring, that wanted to say yes, to see where this could go. But I couldn't just ignore the reality of the situation. Do you love her? Sarah asked, her voice quiet but probing. Because if you do, that's the real question here. I didn't answer immediately. I just sat there, my mind spinning. Did I love her? The question seemed so simple, but it wasn't. I'd admired her from the start, sure. But love? I didn't have the answer yet. And that scared me more than anything else. The next few days felt like an eternity. Every time I passed Liara in the hallway, every time I saw her enter the lab with that calm, graceful presence, I felt this tight knot form in my chest. I tried to focus on my work, to keep my mind occupied with the data we were analyzing. But every time I glanced over, her violet eyes were there, staring back at me. I couldn't escape it. The conversation we'd had, the words I'd jokingly thrown out into the air, had become something far bigger than I had ever expected. And now, I had to confront it. So, after days of restless thinking, I made up my mind. I had to speak to her. I couldn't let this tension hang between us any longer. I found her in the lab late that afternoon, standing in front of her workstation, reviewing some of the compatibility markers we had been working on. Her markings shifted faintly as she focused, her face serious. Liara, I called out, trying to steady my voice. She turned, her gaze softening slightly when she saw me. Ethan, she said, her voice calm. But there was an edge to it, a quiet anticipation. I thought you might come. I cleared my throat. We need to talk. She nodded, stepping away from her workstation and walking toward me, her presence filling the space. My heart pounded in my chest, but I knew I had to do this. I had to be honest with her, no matter how terrifying it was. I've been thinking about what happened. I started, my words stumbling out. About what you said. I paused, trying to find the right way to explain myself. When I made that joke, I didn't think you'd take it seriously. I didn't think you'd respond with a proposal, she finished, her voice gentle but firm. She took a step closer, her eyes searching mine, and I could see the quiet resolve in her expression. You said you'd say yes if I proposed. I took that seriously, Ethan. For my people, a declaration like that holds weight. I swallowed hard. There it was again, her sincerity, her calmness, and yet I was the one who felt like I was drowning in uncertainty. I didn't mean it like that, I said again, though I could feel the weight of my own words. It was just a joke, a throwaway comment. Liara stepped closer, closing the space between us. But you didn't lie when you said it, did you? I froze, my heart skipping a beat. What was I supposed to say to that? No, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I wasn't lying, but I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know it would be taken seriously. Liara was quiet for a moment, her markings subtly shifting as she processed my words. Finally, she spoke, her voice low, but filled with an emotion I couldn't quite place. Ethan, when I said I was responding to your declaration, I meant it. My people do not make proposals lightly. When we bond, it is for life. There is no turning back, no second chances. But I would not have made this offer if I didn't believe you were worthy of it. Her words hit me like a wave. The weight of her culture, the seriousness of what she was offering. It was more than I could have ever imagined. But in her eyes, I saw something else. There was no game here. No hidden agenda. Just honesty. And that honesty, raw and intense, made me question everything I thought I knew. I don't understand, I said, my voice shaky. I mean, I don't know what it means to bond with someone like you. To follow your traditions, to become part of your world. It's too much for me to just jump into. I've spent my whole life studying genetics, not love. Not something this complicated. Liara's gaze softened, and she took another step closer. I understand your hesitation. It's a big decision. But you said you'd say yes if I proposed. And I'm asking you to be brave enough to honor that. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was drowning in confusion. I felt like I was standing on the edge of something new, something unknown. But more than that, I felt like I was standing with someone who saw me for who I was. Not just the scientist, not just the isolated man working in a sterile lab, but the person underneath it all. I don't know if I'm ready for everything that comes with this, I admitted, my voice quiet. But I do know that I'm not ready to lose the chance to find out. To know what it would be like to be with you, even if it's complicated. Liara smiled softly, the warmth in her expression melting the last of my hesitation. I'm not asking you to decide now, Ethan. Take your time. But know this, I believe in us. I believe in what we could be, even if we come from different worlds. I only ask that you give this the consideration it deserves. Her words were like a balm on the rawness of my thoughts. I didn't have an answer yet, but for the first time, I felt like I was ready to seek one. The days that followed were filled with a tension I couldn't escape. Every time I saw Liara, my mind would race, and every time I worked alongside her, I felt that knot in my chest tighten. The more I thought about her proposal, the more complicated it became. It wasn't just about me and her. It was about crossing cultures, understanding each other in ways that felt beyond what I was capable of. I would lie if I said I wasn't afraid. Afraid of the commitment. Afraid of the unknown. Afraid of what my decision would mean, not just for me, but for her. If I said yes, it would change everything. My life, my future, and the way I viewed everything around me. And yet, a part of me knew that saying yes was the only way forward. The station felt smaller now, the space between us growing wider despite our proximity. We still worked together, of course, still collaborated on the research, but it wasn't the same. There was an unspoken weight to every conversation, a tension in the air that neither of us could shake. It wasn't until a late-night shift in the lab that I finally realized I couldn't keep running from this. I had to make a decision, for both of us. I found myself in the observation deck that evening, staring out at the stars, their cold, distant light casting shadows over my thoughts. The vastness of space had always comforted me before, but now, it felt isolating. How could I make a decision this big when everything around me felt so enormous? So unknown? It wasn't until I heard the soft footsteps behind me that I realized I wasn't alone. I turned to find Liara standing there, her figure framed by the dim starlight pouring through the viewport. Her presence felt like a magnet, drawing me in, even as my heart struggled to keep up with the uncertainty. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice quiet but steady, "about what you'll decide. And I want you to know that no matter what, I respect your choice. If you say no, I won't hold it against you. I'll respect your decision, but I'll also give you the space you need to make it. No pressure." Her words were soft, but they carried the weight of everything she had said to me before. There was no hesitation in her voice, no plea in her eyes. Just honesty. And somehow, that made it harder for me to ignore my feelings. "I'm not sure if I'm ready," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know enough about your culture, about what being bonded to you truly means. It's not just a commitment to you, it's a commitment to your entire way of life. Your family, your house, your people." Liara nodded, understanding in her expression. "Yes, it's not just about us. It's about everything that comes with it. But I know what it's like to fear the unknown, to feel like you're standing on the edge of something you can't control. I just need to know if you're willing to take that leap with me, even if it means stepping into a world that's different from your own." Her words struck deep within me. I had spent so much time thinking about what I might lose, but I hadn't considered what I might gain. The thought of a life shared with her, a future where our paths intertwined, was something I couldn't ignore. Yes, it was complicated. Yes, it would be difficult. But wasn't that what life was? A series of choices, each one more difficult than the last, each one leading you down a path you never expected? I've spent so long trying to understand everything, I admitted, my gaze meeting hers. But maybe understanding isn't the point. Maybe it's about trusting what feels right. And right now, Liara, I can't imagine saying no. I can't imagine turning away from what we could be. Liara's eyes softened, her markings shifting gently as she stepped closer. "Are you saying yes, Ethan?" I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of my decision settle in my chest. Yes, I'm saying yes." Her expression changed in an instant, the tension in her shoulders relaxing, and her eyes gleaming with something I could only describe as relief. "Then we will face this together, Ethan. And whatever comes next, we will face it as one." As she took my hand in hers, I realized something profound. This wasn't just a decision about love or commitment. It was about partnership, about sharing a future with someone who saw me, who respected me, and who was willing to take a chance on me despite everything. "I don't know what the future holds," I said, my voice steady now. "But I'm ready to find out. Together." Liara smiled, and in that moment, I knew I had made the right choice. This wasn't the end of something. It was just the beginning. The next few days felt like a blur of quiet anticipation. We went back to work, both of us carrying the weight of our decision, though neither of us spoke about it directly. The station seemed to hum with a new energy, almost like the universe itself was waiting for us to take the next step. But there was one thing I hadn't accounted for. The moment I said yes, everything changed, not just between Liara and me, but within the station itself. The way the others treated us, the way the air felt around us. It wasn't subtle. Liara's proposal had set something in motion, a ripple that was already beginning to spread. I wasn't prepared for how visible it would be. The day after I gave her my answer, Dr. Thuron, the senior villain researcher, pulled me aside during our morning break. The look in his eyes was inscrutable, but there was a quiet intensity in the way he regarded me. "Ethan," He began, his voice low. You have received a proposal from Dr. Liara, I understand. I nodded, still trying to wrap my head around the weight of the situation. Yes. He studied me for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then you should understand the gravity of it. Liara is of House Thuren. Her proposal is not a casual gesture. It is a declaration of commitment, both to her and to her people. You will be seen as her bond now, not just by her, but by her house, her culture, and the others who share her traditions. I swallowed, the weight of his words settling into my bones. I had known, of course, that Liara was from a noble house, but I hadn't fully understood the ramifications of that until now. This wasn't just about her and me. It was about our worlds colliding, two different species, two different cultures, two very different futures. You're asking a lot, I said, my voice tight with the realization of just how deep this was. You're asking me to be a part of something I don't fully understand. Thuren's ears tilted forward, an expression I had learned meant he was both listening and evaluating. That is true. But know this, if you commit to her, if you honor what she is offering, you will gain more than you can imagine. The bond between two people in our culture is profound. It is not something that is given lightly. If you are serious, if you are truly ready, then you will have more than just a partner. You will have a family, a future. His words hung in the air, and I felt a shift inside me. The decision I had made was no longer just about me and Liara. It was about something much larger than I could have anticipated. The next few days felt like a whirlwind, but in a way, everything seemed clearer now. Dr. Thuren's words weighed heavily on me, but they also pushed me to think beyond my own fears. Liara wasn't just an alien woman from another world. She was someone who saw me for who I was, someone who believed in what we could have together. And that belief, that trust, was something I couldn't take lightly. I had already made my decision, but now I had to commit to it fully. I couldn't keep second-guessing myself or holding back. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the uncertainty I'd been feeling wasn't just fear. It was the natural anxiety that comes with change. Big, life-changing decisions like this are never easy, but they're necessary. I found Liara in the lab that evening, working intently at her station, her markings shifting softly as she reviewed some genetic sequences. There was a calmness to her, a certainty that only made me feel more nervous. She didn't look up when I approached, but she must have sensed me because she stopped and turned to face me. Ethan, she said, her voice gentle but with an edge of curiosity. You've been quiet these past few days. Have you made your decision? I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Yes, I've made my decision. Her expression softened, and her eyes seemed to search mine, as if she were looking for something deeper. And I stepped forward, my heart pounding in my chest. The air felt charged, like a storm waiting to break. But this wasn't a storm, it was something more profound. This was the moment of clarity I had been waiting for. I had to say it out loud, to make it real. I say yes, Liara, I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside me. I accept your proposal. I'll bond with you. I'll face whatever comes, and I'll do it with you. Whatever our future holds, I'm ready to walk through it with you. Liara's eyes softened, and a small smile tugged at the corners of her lips. For a moment, she didn't say anything. She just stood there, looking at me as if she were seeing me in a new light. You've made me the happiest being in the universe, Ethan, she finally whispered. And together, we'll face everything. No matter what. It wasn't just a promise from her. It was a promise from me too. We were in this together, for better or worse. As she stepped forward and took my hand, I realized something. This wasn't the end of a story. It was the beginning of something new, something that transcended boundaries and defied expectations. We had a future to build, and I wasn't afraid anymore. The days that followed were filled with a sense of quiet anticipation. The station felt different now, quieter in a way, but also filled with potential. Our decision, Liara's and mine, had already begun to ripple outward. Everyone noticed the change in us, the subtle shift in the way we interacted. It wasn't just about being colleagues anymore. It was about something deeper, something that connected us beyond words, beyond research, beyond the stars. We spent the next few weeks preparing for what lay ahead, navigating the complexities of our cultures, and learning about each other in ways I had never imagined. There were questions to answer, traditions to honor, and an entire future to consider. But for the first time, I wasn't worried about the unknown. I was excited by it. As for the rest of the crew, they took it in stride. Sarah and Marcus, my two closest friends on the station, threw us a small celebration. "You actually did it," Marcus grinned. "You accepted an alien proposal because of a drunken joke." "I accepted because I love her," I corrected with a smile. "The joke just gave her the courage to ask." Sarah laughed. "Still the best terrible joke you've ever made." Even though our lives were about to change in ways we couldn't fully predict, I felt a sense of peace. Liara and I were building something together, something real, something that went beyond the confines of our species, our cultures, and our pasts. In the quiet moments, when we'd sit in the observation deck together, watching the stars pass by, I'd realize how far I'd come from that simple joke. I had walked into the unknown, unsure of what would happen, but with her by my side, I knew that I was ready to face whatever came next. The future was wide open, and for the first time, I felt ready to embrace it. Together.